All right, in this explainer, we're going to break down a pretty intense personal story about a relationship that just spirals out of control with shocking speed. We'll walk through exactly how a seemingly small discovery ended up leading to a major crisis.
So this is the actual title from the first-person account we're looking at. I mean, wow, right? It's blunt, it's startling, and it immediately sets the stage for a dramatic series of events that all kicked off with this one very private discovery.
Okay, so before we dive into the big blow-up, we've got to understand the context of this relationship. To really get what's going on, you need to know what was happening behind the scenes. And at the very core of it all was a pretty fundamental difference in their sexual needs.
So here's the deal. At the heart of their relationship is this long-standing dynamic. Her partner, who's 10 years older, goes through these phases, we're talking weeks, sometimes even months, where he's just completely, as she puts it, off-put by sexuality. So what does that mean for her? Well, she's 33, and it basically leaves her having to either suppress her own desires or find other ways to meet her needs. And the really important thing to get here is that this was not a new problem. This was an established pattern for them.
And this is a really crucial point. The whole idea of sex toys, it wasn't a taboo thing, it wasn't new in their relationship. In fact, it was an established part of their dynamic for both of them. He knew about her other toys, and get this, he even had one of his own. You have to keep this shared history in mind because that's exactly what makes his reaction later on so shocking and completely unexpected.
So, during a recent period where he was being particularly distant, she says he wouldn't even kiss her, she went and bought a new toy. It's described as rather large as well as realistic. In her mind, this was just her way of managing her own needs while he was unavailable. Totally consistent with their established dynamic. And boom, this is where everything changes. What was previously an accepted, normal part of their relationship suddenly just shatters when he discovers this specific new toy.
And you gotta understand, the key thing here is there was no deception. She wasn't trying to hide it. It was in the same drawer as her other toys. She was operating under the totally reasonable assumption that, given their history, this wouldn't be an issue at all.
But his reaction was immediate, and it was visceral. After finding the toy, he didn't ask questions, he didn't start a conversation, he just confronted her with this two-word judgment. And with that one phrase, the whole thing is instantly framed not as a curiosity, but as a moral failing, and it just shuts down any possibility of a real dialogue.
This is where things take a really dark turn. What starts as just a harsh judgment rapidly descends into something much more alarming.
The escalation happened in 4 incredibly quick stages. First, he follows her out to the garage and just repeats the insult. She's stunned, so she kind of laughs it off, trying to de-escalate by saying, "It's just a dildo." But her laughter, well, that acts as a trigger. His anger just explodes into a direct physical threat before he abruptly ends the whole thing himself by running away.
And this is the moment. This is when the conflict crosses a terrifying line. A verbal dispute becomes a direct threat of physical violence. It's a shocking, direct statement that completely changes the nature of the entire interaction. And for her, you have to imagine everything that came before is now seen through the lens of this one single sentence.
This was his final volley before he fled. It's this mix of a command and an insult, throwing one last verbal blow before retreating upstairs, leaving her completely stunned by the rapid spiral of the last few minutes.
So, in the immediate aftermath, the adrenaline starts to fade and she's left to try and process what just happened, and this leads her to a really profound and difficult dilemma. In her own words, her mind feels frazzled. She's also self-aware enough to know what the standard advice is in a situation like this: you leave, period. But for her, it doesn't feel that simple. She believes there's nuance here that kind of complicates that black and white advice. This leaves her with this really intense internal conflict. On one side, you have the undeniable facts of what just happened: a threat of violence, vicious insults, and a shocking display of anger. But on the other side, you have the entire context of their history: a long-term relationship, her love for him, and the fact that this behavior was, in her experience, completely out of character. So she's forced to weigh a single terrifying moment against years and years of their partnership.
And ultimately, this story really forces us to confront a universal question about love and boundaries. It leaves all of us to wonder, can a long, loving history actually outweigh one moment of shocking aggression? How do you reconcile the person you love with a version of them that threatens you? There are no easy answers here, just the impossible calculus of drawing a red line when your heart is involved.